It turns out that I accidentally just mustn't have hit record when I filmed today's review, which makes me very happy that I do my audio separately. So, what that means is that you guys are going to watch me do some art today because basically, over on my Instagram, I've been posting a marker piece every day because I've been learning how to use markers, and I figured it'll probably take me about the same amount of time to do that as like the full audio length. Probably not by the time the editing's done, but what that means is I'll just speed it up. You will see that right now, probably, that it is already sped up. I do not work at this speed. So to be clear, this piece took me about an hour. I want to be clear that, like, this is a sped up version. I can't work this quickly. I don't know how much I am going to have to speed it up for the record. So, yeah, I don't know how obvious it'll be at this point. But I just wanted to put this little intro in here because I was so disappointed to find out that I just hadn't hit record. But anyway, yeah, enjoy a book review and enjoy me making some art. Hi, hello, and welcome, or welcome back, I suppose. Today, I'm going to be having a munch while I film, because I have shit to do today. Is it going to mess up my editing time tomorrow? Yes. Is that going to bother me now? No. You know, sometimes, you'll get a book, check it out, and you've not heard of the book before, but even just what you have in front of you, like, seems great, and then you get to the end and go, should I have managed my expectations for this? Did I get overexcited from the blurb? And I think that's what I'm dealing with here. Personally, I don't think you should have to manage your expectations. I'm not saying everything has to be a masterpiece, but if it's published, it shouldn't be bad. And obviously, I'm aware that's very subjective. I'm sure there are some people who would enjoy this, but I think from the point of view of somebody who has studied writing, this is a book that isn't for you in that case, I think. And that sounds really petty, but I'll get to it. If the way the storytelling is handled in this book, it's one of those that it's hard to turn my brain off from. I know how books are written, whereas there are some books I find it easy to do that, and even books that are simply written. But in this one, I just found myself spotting how it was written, and I couldn't turn that off. I wasn't even in reviewer mode with it. I've studied English and creative writing. I know how this is structured a little bit too well. So today we are going to be looking at Anna North's Outlawed, and it's one of those where if you look at the first round of notes, like my first few pages compared to my last two pages, you would not think I was talking about the same book, and today we're going to explore why that is. In the year of our Lord, 1894, I became an outlaw. Like a lot of things, it didn't happen all at once. And that's a great intro. In fact, it's a great book till chapter, I would say maybe 5 or 6. And then the potential that is held in those early chapters just drops off or isn't fulfilled, I guess. And this book, it deals with a lot of themes being centered very much around feminism as a kind of, from what I would gather, being a looking at the past as a comparative to the future. You're not being told that. This is purely historical fiction. But it does feel like one of those where it is a let's look at this to compare to now. And we also do have some glances into sexuality, though it's not an exploration of sexuality per se. And we also do have looks into gender expression, though the misogyny is the overarching theme throughout, and the others are more background. And it's sort of the idea of women being something evil if they cannot bring life into the world is something that is really the prevalent theme. And don't worry, this isn't like this book is saying that women are evil. It is a feminist piece of literature. It is very much saying this is bad. Don't worry, I'm not looking into like one of those books where we're like, yeah, fuck women, or get rid of them if they can't give children. Like, it's looking at the world in which women are always at fault if children cannot be brought into a family, as it were. You know, if you have a, and obviously this is in 1894, you do have to be married, and it is one of those where I feel like I keep saying it's one of those. Anyway, fine. But you've got to be married, and if within that marriage a child cannot be brought, it doesn't matter if the woman is the one unable to bear children or it's actually the man. It's the woman. She's barren, and within this time period, that means she can be hanged as a witch. And a lot of the stuff, especially the early stuff in the chapters before we found out our lead character Ada or Ava? Yeah, it is Ada. Before we find out that she is herself barren and she is effectively exiled. Well, she's meant to be being hanged herself, but she goes on the run effectively. And it reminds me a lot of that stuff when she's still in her hometown pre getting out. Really reminds me of the stuff I watch about fundamentalists, especially different sects of fundamentalist Christianity. If I'm totally honest, I don't see a lot of stuff elsewhere. I mean, there are two channels I really follow where they talk about stuff like this. One of them is Fundy Fridays, which is a channel which generally is a lot more lighthearted. It's a bit of a piss take of people, which I always enjoy, but it's still well researched and genuinely incredible ways of talking about bringing the bullshit that these people cause to light. And the other channel that I look at is, hang on, what's it called again? It's called Cults to Consciousness, and they're an interview channel. And I discovered them when they interviewed some people who were part of the IBLP cult, to be honest, or high demand group. If it's not a cult, then it's probably that sort of thing. But if you watch, and they were interviewing those after the Shiny Happy People documentary, which looked at IBLP, specifically looking at the Duggars. And if you're at all interested in this area, you will have heard about this. I'm not going into the Duggars right now, or IBLP, or any of this, but I discovered them after that. But they interview so many different people from different high demand groups, different cults, all that sort of stuff. And the interviewer herself, I believe her name's Shalise, if I remember rightly, she got out of mainstream Mormonism, and this is just the type you would be aware of, not any of the fundamentalist polygamous groups, just the regular Mormonism, and realised that it is not a healthy environment to be in. And now she is talking about that amongst other groups, and especially the stuff that she talks about and her guests talk about. I saw a lot of similarities in the early part of this book, which is what that tangent was all about. It wasn't too much of a tangent. Like, in so many of these groups, be them Christian or otherwise, these, if you take most religions and take it to their fundamentalist core, women are nothing but baby making vessels, and if they cannot provide these babies, they're worthless. Please, nobody take that out of context. I don't believe that. These groups believe that. But that's happening now, and this book is set in 80... Hello, Miss Lily? You can't have any fruit. I think it'll kill you. Yeah, that's what I was saying. We have the look at fundamentalist groups and sects and all that sort of stuff, basically almost perfectly reflecting a book set in 1894. And like I say, I don't think that's coincidental. I do believe that we are using this as a reflection of, yeah, sure, some things change, but some things need to change more. And this early stuff really, the early stuff really is a good look at the way that women are, you know, villainized for not being able to reproduce in a way that men just aren't, because it has to be the woman's fault. Well, she's the one that gets pregnant. Well, like, somebody has to get her pregnant, numbnuts. Maybe it's on you. But it just didn't ever feel like we fully went into it in a way that it's set up. It's not that we don't go into it at all, but it's, and I'm not expecting some philosophical, theoretical shit. I'm just asking for it not to just be the same kind of sentiment repeated over and over and over again. It is just, you're barren, I'm barren, isn't that shit? And I'm gonna look for a cure for being barren. And it's like, well, that's great, because then women are still going to be villainized for it. I mean, that is an entirely different thing that I was like, But it's one of those things where I go, okay, now this would be very different. But yeah, in 1894, the thing you're looking for is a cure for barrenness, because also it depicts some people do just want babies and all that sort of stuff. And there's a bit of like talking about bodily autonomy and things like that, like the ability to not only create life, but the ability to stop life being created, as it were. I mean, yeah, this idea in particular is the theme that is explored the most, but it still never felt like we fully got into it enough, and that is in itself a reoccurring theme in this book, just never really diving deep enough, but I will be talking about that a bit later. For now, I am still talking about the general themes, which gets me onto talking about gender and its expression, which again, I thought would be delved into a little bit more. So, Ada finds out she's barren, and she is given a little bit of grace. Effectively is told, get yourself to the, convent, convert yourself, become a nun, or at least become a sister, so then you can become a nun later on, and live your life there, because in this case you won't then be hanged as a witch, and it will be clear that you have found yourself. And while she's in the library down there, she finds all sorts of medical textbooks, effectively, and she finds one in particular by a woman. I can't remember the woman's name, but it is set up at this point. This is not related to the gender stuff, but I need to talk about it now. This stuff, like, she hears about this woman who has this clinic, and it's like a clinic for women to try and find a cure for barrenness. And it's set up at this point that she wants to go and find this woman. And that's why she leaves to effectively join a gang that we have heard about, a group of outlaws run by, they're called the Hole in the Wall Gang, and they are run by somebody called the Kid. And the Kid is the leader of this small outlaw group, and it is a predominantly group of women, but like I say, the leader is the Kid, and the Kid is, well, not he, not she, Elsie said. The Kid is just the Kid. And I was like, oh, we're going to be looking at gender stuff and presentation and non-binary type stuff. And I believe one of the... Hang on. Right, back to where I was. Sorry, I had to go and check something. I really fucking walked up the stairs. So, this from Publishers Weekly. North's knockout novel chronicles the travails of a midwife's daughter who joins a group of female and non-binary outlaws near the end of the 19th century. Impossible to put down. Which is true. I mean, I did think that meant that there was more than one non-binary person, but, like, fine. And there aren't terms like non-binary used in the book, but I don't know how old that term is, and quite frankly, it isn't necessary. It's very obvious if, you know what I mean? But yeah, I was like, oh, we're going to get an exploration of gender nonconformity and non-binary and all that sort of good stuff, like gender expression and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, the group does, like the women in the group, which is everybody but the Kid, they do dress as men to do their outlawing. And, like... there was something being set up where it felt like, and again, maybe this is me just overthinking, but there was this moment where we have Ada being set up in her man gear for the first time, and she's given a fake beard, and she's having a chest bound and all that stuff, and I was like, oh, this is, again, there's going to be some gender exploration here. We're going to get some stuff where it's like talking about discovering oneself. And when it comes to gender expression, it doesn't mean that I was expecting anybody to trans their gender or realise they are non-binary. That wasn't what I was asking for here. It just seemed to me that there was going to be a bit more look about presentation and that sort of stuff, and there just didn't. I don't know, maybe there was some stuff that I missed, but to me it just felt like there wasn't any of it or enough of it, because the dressing as men was purely plot convenient, which is fine, but we have what feels like a setup. Yes, with the kid being, I will just use the term non-binary because the kid is the kid, and also a setup of feeling like we're going to have a look at gender as well as sex, because we are looking at the fact that women are more than just birthing machines. And while we have Ada, who absolutely wants to bring life into the world and help other women do the same, there are those in the group who don't have a need or want to do that anymore. They were excommunicated from their groups, their communities, and now they're living better without that pressure. And I just thought there would be more. Because yes, it is necessary for them to dress as men because they have to be taken seriously, and yes, obviously that is part of the exploration here. The only way they are taken seriously is if they are seen as masculine, as male. But it just felt like there was going to be more, and then there wasn't. And getting back to that barrenness stuff a bit, it's basically a case of women should not be vilified for a problem that they cannot help, because they are not witches for not being able to pop out babies for you. And it's one of those things where it's like they should be able to have access to help, and also we should probably be looking at the men as well. But they're vilified. But again, like I was talking about with some of the stuff earlier, it's never dived into. I don't care if I'm using the wrong word for that. It's never dived into enough, and that is a huge problem with this book. There's basically a pair of problems that we have to deal with. So one, North doesn't spend anywhere near enough time on themes or storylines, big or small. And I'm not saying that everything has to be dived into minute little detail, but it just feels like we're never allowed entry into anything. And two, throughout I felt just unable to be immersed. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier with the fact that the storytelling is in a very basic form and it gets repetitive and formulaic very quickly. You start to notice patterns in the way that literally every fucking thing works. So, with plans, we have discuss plan. Wonder if plan is a good idea. Try plan. It doesn't really work. Sometimes it doesn't work at all, but sometimes maybe a little bit, but it doesn't really work. Then they try something a bit different, apart from if it doesn't work completely. But and the ones where it doesn't really work, we try something a bit different, and then maybe the slightly different thing works, or maybe it doesn't. And it's just like every plan feels like this, and at no point you're just. At some point, I just got really pessimistic because I'm like, I don't care. Why should I care? You haven't set me up to give a shit, because all you set me up to do is go, well, it's probably going to fail then. In some books, we have this feeling that things are never going to work out, but you still kind of want them to. So, I didn't read these books, but from what I remember of the initial film adaptation, and I remember watching the series adaptation, there is a real pessimism to a series of unfortunate events. And obviously the title sets you up to be pessimistic, but not least of all because they're children. Are you feeling like you're constantly willing for something to go right for them? But I didn't get there with this. And that is because of point one, nothing is given enough fucking time, be that stories, people, whatever, stories, themes, people, all that stuff. And then we have like exposition, also pretty formulaic. So we have Ada, our main character. Ada sits down and talks to someone. Ada asks this is if we're getting exposition of somebody else. I mean, if it's Ada, we're gonna get that in the narration. So Ada sits down and talks to someone. Ada asks a couple of questions. Maybe one of those questions really gets to somebody, and then we get an exposition dump. And it's usually like a really important or a huge chunk of their life story. And then we just move on really quickly. Like, we didn't have that chat. I'm not asking to linger on stuff forever. And it's not that nothing ever comes back up again, but like, can we have a moment with something? Like, can we just sit with something for a little bit? This is why exposition dumps often don't work. This is why we should learn little bits about characters at a time. And obviously, yes, I am aware that can be more difficult with a group of characters. I'm trying to remember how many there are at the minute, and I can't fully remember how many are in this. I just mean in the Outlawed group. But like, I know it can be difficult to sprinkle in bits here and there of different people because you've got such a large group. But if you can't do that, and you don't know how to sit in a moment after doing an exposition dump like that, then write a smaller cast of characters. It's not that difficult. Does that mean the story you want to tell might not be the story you can tell right now? Yes. But you as a writer should want the best for your fucking novel. So if that means it has to come later when your skills have improved, then fine. I can guarantee the stuff that I write now is different to the stuff I wrote at the end of my masters. I mean, I'm continuing and editing a piece that I wrote for my masters, but the point is, my abilities have changed since then. And the stuff that I wrote at the end of my masters would have been different from the end of my bachelor's to the beginning of my bachelor's. The stuff that I wrote for A-level, take it back, your stuff improves because you keep doing it, and then you learn stuff. And there are things I want to write. I just can't do it at the minute. There's stuff I want to revisit, rewrite in a different style. I can't do it at the minute. My writing needs to improve, and for some stuff I need to get better at art because I need to be able to illustrate it. And I understand that, so I'm not trying to get them fucking published right now. And like I say, you can use exposition dumps, but they should be used sparingly, and North doesn't. Anna North's only method of exposition is a page and a half, if not more, of exposition, and it's just exhausting. It's boring. I'll be totally honest. It's boring. All of her storytelling feels like the storytelling you are told about in a writing class, which, yeah, if you turn on your study book brain, I can look at any book on my shelf, especially given how much pop fiction is on my shelf. They do follow very similar paths, but if a book is good, you don't notice it the same way. I can look at the classic fiction, I can look at the, I've got classic fiction, I've got horror fiction, pop fiction, autobiographies, and they all follow a similar path. And yes, I do include autobiographies because they are, generally speaking, all told in the same way. They're all told beginning of life to now. But you don't go, oh, well, I understand how I'm reading this, because the ghostwriters do a good job. I'm not under any illusions that that's what I'm reading. But, like, I could look at, and I've got shelves full, and I've got my Kindle and everything, and I could break it down into its formula, but I shouldn't be able to see that formula as I'm reading. And unfortunately, I found it very present here. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but the ending is a clusterfuck. And minor spoiler, I guess, but the thing I was talking about that is set up right near the start when she's at the Commodore, she discovers that book and she wants to go to that centre, the resorters type of thing, where it's like, oh, here we're trying to, if not cure barrenness, then find a way to deal with the symptoms that can cause it and all that sort of, just research it. And It feels like we don't spend any time in something else that just happened before they go, we're going there. And then when they get there, the way I just did like describe the plans earlier, I was just like, hang on. I think, again, this might be a minor spoiler, but frankly, I'm not recommending that you read this book, so I don't mind as much. This is directly read from my notes. Her plan from the time she was in the convent was to go to Pagosa Springs and find this clinic. Anna North, I'm talking to you directly. It is okay to sometimes just have something work out. I thought maybe once you wouldn't draw this out pointlessly because we are right at the bloody end. The one character we're always with is Ada. So yes, she's the one we get closest to, but how can I care if you don't? The longest thread of the book is as throwaway as any other plan or thread. I'm sure you will think of some pointless follow-up of, but it's okay really, but I don't care. It's like the way they did twists on OG TV westerns, for God's sake. It's a joke. And yeah, it does feel a bit like, if you guys know, I think that's what spaghetti westerns are. I don't know, it's not my area. But like the original westerns that you'd see on TV where they first learned what plot twists are, and it would just be constant backs and forths where it's like, your mother, I knew her. It's like, you are my father, and no, I killed your mother, but how my mother is still alive, and it's constant plot twist. And that's how that feels with every plan, and it's a nightmare. Maybe it's an homage. Maybe that's what it is, an homage to shitty old westerns. But and got to the end, and I just sort of went, well, at least I'm done now. And that's not what you want from the end of the book. You should be clamouring for more. Either more of that book or more of the author's work if you know that this is just a one-off, it's not a series. I couldn't care less. I never want to read an Anna North book again. And if I do see something else and it sounds interesting, I might give it a go to see if this was a one-off. But, I fucking doubt it. So, I have a huge stack of library books, plus one more because I bought it recently. Like one more book, not one more library book. And at the very least, I have some faith that all but one of those will be good. And the one is, I don't know, because I've read a couple of this person's books before. One was dog shit, and one was great for what it was. Is the best way I can explain that. I think that was pretty much how I put it. It's like, for the genre, it's what I expected. It was pretty fucking good. So, I mean, I'm going to try to read as many of them as I can before the end of the year. Maybe. Though that one may well be like, you won't see it for a bit because it's going to be in the Bad Rep Book Club because of the author. No, it's not Colleen Hoover. I don't want to go near Colleen Hoover. She does my fucking head in. But with this one, yeah, it's going to be in the Bad Red Book Club because I'm going to go in on it because that's what I did for the other books. This is basically round 3. Who gets to come away as the winner? Does this author beat me and ruin my day? Or do I get to win and have a book that I've enjoyed? I think that would be the right way around for that. Maybe I win if the book's good and she wins if the book's bad, because she gets a published book and she makes loads of money, despite the fact that first book was dog shit. Let me know if you've had any reading experiences like this one, where you've gone into a book just having high hopes and then you've actually read it and gone, oh, you could have been so much more. You could have been so much better. Like, it wrote me in at the start and it just steadily got worse and worse. But, look, we've got better things coming. I have some manga coming up. I have some literary fiction. I have some historical fiction. I got some non-fiction. I got all sorts. I think, how many books do I have? I have 12 books. There aren't 12 weeks in the left in the year. So, this will almost definitely go into January. I don't know how many weeks there are left in the year. And this is reading versus upload. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know what my first book will be. But I'll probably get through at least like 4 of them, because I tend to take like the last week, 2 weeks off, like maybe a week or a week and a half off actually reading in the year, because it gives me a fucking break, and the library's not always open anyway. So maybe I should be reading something festive, but I need to get these books done, because I can only renew them so many times, and they've been sitting with me for quite a while, but my brain keeps turning off. Like, I'd probably be further through this if my brain didn't turn off when I finished this book. I finished Outlawed and my brain went, no. It took me an age to script it. It took me an age to fucking write, like, to get to this point of filming it. And then I'm going to be editing tomorrow. So hopefully that means we'll be uploading either... What day is today? Monday. So this will either be uploaded Tuesday or Wednesday. It depends on my time, because I have to script another video, script something else tomorrow. As well as, no. Am I scripting anything else tomorrow? No, I am not. Good, because I didn't turn my brain off. I'm just doing some reading as well as editing tomorrow. So anyway, fine. If you, however, are reading something a little bit festive, getting yourself into the spirit of Grimbus or whatever else you are celebrating, then do let me know in the comments below. And remember, you can like and subscribe and put your notifications on and all that other cringe shit I'm supposed to ask you to do at the end of a video. But most importantly, you can have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful whenever you are watching this. Take good care of yourselves. Right.